Your baby is adorable.
Yeah, he looks just like you.
Huh?
Huh? Ever since we were kids, my sister was somewhat of a local beauty known around town. I was a sporty kid, always running around the playground with the boys, sporting a short haircut. In contrast, Emma was a delicate girl, fair-skinned, and looked lovely in white dresses. That's why all the boyfriends I brought home during my student days ended up falling for her. It wasn't her fault. I blamed my lack of charm, but continued to work on myself until I finally secured a marriage. My husband Mark didn't even bat an eyelid upon seeing my sister. That's why I thought he was the right one. I trusted him. But his betrayal was unforgivable. In a fit of rage, I took action that led us both to lose everything and fall into despair. My name is Jane, 33 years old. I married Mark, who's 2 years older than me, 3 years ago, and now we live together. Ever since I was young, I dreamed of being a homemaker once I got married. However, after graduating from college and joining a company with supportive supervisors and adorable, honest colleagues, I found the work environment comfortable and fulfilling. So even after marriage, I continued to work full-time. Mark was supportive of my career.
Let's both do household chores whenever we can, okay?
He was very cooperative in the beginning. Yes, in the beginning. Mark had lived with his parents until we got married. He had no experience living alone and absolutely no skills in doing household chores. When he vacuumed, he'd bump into the trash can, spilling its contents. If he did laundry, he'd use too much detergent, causing foam to overflow. And when washing dishes, it was more common for plates to remain unbroken than not. His cooking attempts were so hazardous, I couldn't even watch. At first, I tried teaching him and working together, but I had a job too. Leaving chores to Mark often meant they took longer, so I ended up doing them myself more often than not. Each time, Mark would have this apologetic look on his face, but still,
"I'm sorry, thank you,"
he would say. I don't even remember when it became the norm, but now cleaning, laundry, dishwashing, and cooking, all these tasks fell on me. The only thing left for Mark was taking out the trash, and even then I was the one who had to gather it. Despite working full-time, sometimes I just couldn't manage everything. But whenever I asked Mark for help, he would visibly show his displeasure.
"You do everything faster than I would."
"But you can at least help by putting away the laundry, right?" Today, after a whole day of work, I came home to find Mark lounging on the sofa, watching TV. Our workplaces have similar leaving times, but his is closer to home, so he usually gets back before me. The laundry I hung out in the morning was still out there, and the breakfast dishes were left in the sink. I had no time to clean them this morning, and it seemed Mark hadn't even noticed. First, I dealt with the dishes, then started preparing dinner. All this time, Mark just watched TV. That's why I asked him to help with the laundry, but he didn't want to. Taking the clothes off the hangers and folding them, such a simple task. Yet he said he couldn't do it. Or rather, he didn't want to because it was a hassle.
"I don't know all the specifics about how you fold clothes."
"I can teach you, and it's not a big deal anyway. As long as they're properly stored in the closet, I'm fine with anything."
"I had a ton of tasks at work today. Really tired, you know. Normally it's no big deal, but today I'm just especially exhausted."
"It's okay, I'll do it."
"Really? Well, I think it's faster if you do it."
Saying this, Mark turned his attention back to the TV. And here I am, tired from a busy day at work, Now Mark doesn't even bother to say sorry or thank you anymore. What happened to our initial promise of sharing household chores? Even if it means a greater burden on me, isn't it reasonable to at least want some words of gratitude? Sighing quietly, I continued preparing dinner in a resigned manner. Mark's attitude seems to be getting worse day by day. Not doing any housework seems a given to him now, and he's been going out alone more often on his days off. Whenever I suggest that we should go out just the two of us, I've already made plans to go golfing with my boss that day. Or, a colleague wants to discuss some work stuff, are the typical responses, with his schedule always seeming to be full. Mark, at 35, and without any particular position, honestly doesn't make a very good salary. I accidentally saw his payslip once, and it was considerably less than mine. But the fact that he's often invited out by his boss and colleagues probably means he's well regarded. I understand the importance of networking and relationships in a job. That's why when he uses these as reasons, it's hard for me to ask him to prioritize me. And I don't have the courage to quit my job and become a full-time homemaker to make time for us. In the midst of all this, 3 years of our marriage have passed. I've always wanted children soon after getting married. My feelings haven't changed, and even after marrying Mark, I brought up the topic of having children several times. However, Mark expressed that he still values our time together and wasn't very enthusiastic about actively trying for a baby. While Mark had expressed the desire to cherish our time together, it seemed contradictory when he often spent his holidays going out alone, which left me feeling confused and disappointed. I decided to approach the topic of having children sooner, but Mark's response was evasive, leaving me unsure about his true intentions. Maybe he doesn't really like kids. This thought made me feel a bit down. But I know that a change of scenery is important during such times. I was thinking of maybe going to see a movie when I received a message. It was from my older sister, Emma, 2 years my senior. She wanted to meet and talk about something. Thinking that meeting my sister after so long would be refreshing, I readily agreed. The next day, we arranged to meet at a cafe near the station. Emma arrived a little later than the planned time, and she took a seat in front of me. "Sorry I'm late. It's been a while. How have you been?" "I'm good. And you?" "I'm doing well, too." Saying that, Emma laughed and said, "Sorry for calling you out of the blue today," Emma said. She furrowed her eyebrows and continued, "No, I'm happy to see you, too, after a while. Actually, there's something I need to tell you about, Jane." "What is it?" "I'm pregnant." "What?" I exclaimed so loudly that I quickly covered my mouth with both hands, remembering that we were in a cafe. Emma laughed at my reaction. "You're too surprised." She laughed and said, "Well, of course I am. Wait, you had a boyfriend? I had no idea." As I muttered this, Emma's expression turned slightly troubled. "Actually, I'm not married yet." "What?" "There are some complications with the father." Emma said this with a disheartened slump of her shoulders. Emma has always been somewhat of a local beauty, well known around town. In contrast, I was the sporty type, always with a short haircut, actively running around the playground with boys. She was the dainty one, with her pale skin and fragile figure, looking adorable in a white dress. Now she was working as a temp, moving between various jobs. She used to laugh off not becoming a full-time employee, saying it was to avoid workplace romances and the drama they bring. Maybe it had something to do with that. But you're happy about the baby, right? Tentatively, I asked her, and Emma laughed, nodding. Of course. I nodded in response. It was unclear what the exact situation was, but Emma seemed to have decided to become a single mother. Jane, will you support me? Regardless of the circumstances, if Emma wanted this child, there was only one thing I could say. Of course I will. Congratulations. Emma smiled with relief when I said this. I hope you'll have a baby soon too, Jane. I was struggling with that very issue, but I couldn't bring myself to say that to Emma, who looked so happy. Yeah, hopefully. I just smiled vaguely and said, when I got home that day, I immediately told Mark about Emma. My sister is pregnant. Oh, really? We'll have to bring a gift when the baby's born. I had thought this was big news, but Mark's reaction was more nonchalant than I expected. He must know that Emma isn't married yet, but he didn't seem interested in asking about the father or anything else. Maybe he really isn't interested in kids. Unable to talk to Emma about it either, the unease inside me only grew. Time passed, and then I received a message from Emma. The baby was born safely. When I told Mark, his response was just as simple as before. She mentioned that she had received a message. Oh, is that so? It was just a simple message, she said. Thinking that maybe seeing the baby would make him want one too, I suggested. Shouldn't we visit my sister to see how she's doing? I asked. She's going to be in the hospital for a while longer, and I'd love to see the baby soon and bring a gift for the birth. Ah, right. I can make it this Saturday. Really? I'll let my sister know. So, after getting Emma's okay, Mark and I planned to visit her on Saturday with a gift to celebrate the birth. The next day, as I was about to search for gift ideas on my phone, I realized the battery was dead. My laptop was left at work, so I decided to use Mark's computer, which was in the bedroom. I thought about asking Mark first, but he seemed to be dozing off on the sofa while watching TV. Figuring it was just a quick search, I went straight to the bedroom. When I turned on the computer, something surprising caught my eye. An app must have been set to auto-start because, without touching anything, a folder of messages popped open. What I saw was the latest exchange of messages. All of them between Emma and Mark. What? Why? It was natural for Emma and Mark to have contact, since she's my sister and he's my husband. But why were they communicating so frequently? Curious, I opened the latest exchange to read it. Congratulations on the birth. Really sorry I couldn't be there. So I'm a dad now, huh? Thank you. The baby came out more easily than I thought. I can't wait for you, his dad, to meet him. What is this? I couldn't believe it. It made no sense. Sorry, I couldn't be there. I'm a dad now? In this context, it seems like Emma's child may appear to be Mark's child. Frantically, I scrolled through their previous messages. Told Jane about the pregnancy today. That's so mean. That was the day Emma told me she was pregnant. I'm pregnant, probably from when we met last time. Really? That's amazing. So happy. And this message, probably from when Emma found out she was pregnant. I'll come over today, too. Told Jane I have golf with my boss. Okay, how about we try that restaurant we talked about last time? As I scrolled further back, The messages between my sister and my husband were too intimate to be just between in-laws. Their relationship seemed to have started soon after Mark and I got married. I felt a mix of rage and despair trembling in my hands. I can't believe this. Somehow I managed to think clearly about what needed to be done next. I made sure to leave Mark's computer as it was so he wouldn't know I had used it. Returning to the living room, I found Mark sleeping soundly, snoring carelessly, clenching my fists tightly. I will never forgive this, I muttered quietly to myself as I hatched a plan. Then came Saturday. Mark and I went to the hospital where Emma was staying. She looked surprisingly well. She had an easy delivery, didn't she? Trying hard to keep up a smile. Despite feeling bitter, I managed to appear cheerful. In Emma's arms, the newborn baby slept peacefully. The child was innocent in all this. That's why even the baby's adorableness felt hateful to me. I glanced at Mark. Seeing him looking at the baby so happily, I was filled with rage.
The baby's cute, isn't he?
Mark murmured affectionately. Yeah, he looked just like you.
What?
What? Mark and Emma froze. I sneered. And at the words I muttered, both of them suddenly changed their expressions. You thought I didn't know anything. Upon hearing that, Emma said, What do you mean? Emma tilted her head in an exaggerated manner. About the two of you having an affair, and about who the baby's real father is. At my words, Mark,
What are you talking about?
Raised his voice.
Emma just gave birth. Don't stress her out with your baseless accusations.
It's not just an accusation. I have all the evidence. Saying this, I threw an envelope at Mark. He caught it looking surprised and checked the contents. Inside were excerpts of messages between Mark and Emma that suggested their affair. I had copied the data from Mark's computer to mine and reread everything.
You snooped through my computer.
I just wanted to find a gift for my sister's baby. Your computer wasn't password protected, and the messages just popped up automatically, didn't they? As I said this, Emma clicked her tongue in disbelief at Mark's careless handling of the situation. The messages revealed that their relationship began when Mark visited my family home for a family meeting. He met Emma there and fell for her at first sight. However, being on the verge of marrying me, Mark couldn't do anything. So he married me, but his feelings for Emma never faded. Then, coincidentally, Emma joined Mark's company as a temp worker. Though it was only for 6 months, it was more than enough time for them to grow closer. All the excuses Mark used, like playing golf with his boss or discussing work with colleagues, were lies to cover up his meetings with Emma. Eventually, they became intimate. I didn't want it, but Mark forced me.
What?
As I summarized what I had learned from the messages, Emma suddenly started playing the victim. But the baby is innocent. I decided to have the baby, that's all.
What nonsense are you sprouting? It was probably you who seduced me in the first place.
That is not true, right, Jane? You believe me, don't you? Emma looked at me desperately. I stated clearly, Of course I don't believe you. During my student days, I often confided in Emma about my romantic relationships. Whenever I had a boyfriend, Emma seemed happy for me as if it were her own happiness. However, my relationships never lasted long. That's because whenever I introduced my boyfriends to Emma, almost without fail, they ended up liking her. Some were honest enough to break up with me because they had fallen for Emma, while others tried to use me to get closer to her. Each time, Emma would apologize with a sorry look, but of course it wasn't her fault. During a time when I was struggling with various things like feeling unattractive or worrying that Emma might not like me enough, I met Mark. Even when Mark met Emma, he always only said,
"Your sister is beautiful."
but his behavior towards me didn't change at all. That's why I married Mark. I thought he was the one who wouldn't be distracted by Emma and only had eyes for me. However, the reality was that we didn't meet Emma until we reached a point of no return. And that's the only reason we made it to marriage. In fact, I was happier during my student days when I could believe in Emma's kindness. You were intentionally stealing my boyfriends, weren't you? I never did such a thing. It's all written here. Saying this, I thrust the printouts of the messages between Emma and Mark at her. I've always taken all of Jane's boyfriends.
That's a terrible hobby.
And then Jane would come to me for relationship advice. Every time I comforted her, it really boosted my self-esteem. Couldn't stop doing it. That was the truth. Emma had intentionally taken my boyfriends and found satisfaction in consoling me afterward. I thought she was a reliable big sister, someone I could share my joys and sorrows with. Then I handed Mark the divorce papers. My name's already on it. You just need to sign it and submit.
Wait, Jane.
You'll pay a hefty compensation, and Emma will too. What? But I just had a baby. That's not my problem. I've already told everything to our parents. Dad and Mom say they're cutting ties with you. Wait a minute. If you do that, they'll never see their grandchild. Even if you divorce Mark, who would marry someone unattractive and divorced like you? They are both putting me first. They said I don't have to force myself. Right now, they'd rather not see the face of their daughter, who committed adultery, than miss seeing their grandchild. Emma looked frustrated at my words. Then she exclaimed, That's it. She looked at Mark and said, Hey, this child's father is you, so you'll be contributing to child support, right? That's what we agreed on from the start. In response to Emma's words, Mark fell silent. And it's understandable why. With Mark's meager salary, if he had to pay compensation to me, he probably couldn't afford child support. He must have assumed that as long as this affair remained hidden, he could rely on my income for living expenses. But now he faced both compensation and child support, a real double whammy. That would certainly leave someone speechless. From now on, I'll have my lawyer handle everything.
This is ridiculous.
As I tried to leave, Mark shouted like this and began tearing up copies of the messages. Of course, even if he did such a thing, the data is still on my computer, and I've already submitted it as evidence to the lawyer. By now, they're probably verifying the authenticity of whether the messages were really exchanged between their computers. Well, judging by the reactions of these two, it doesn't seem to be impersonation or scam emails, but who knows for sure. Afterward, I officially divorced Mark. When I returned to my parents' house, they cried. To my parents, Emma was still their beloved daughter, and of course, she was my cherished sister too. I never imagined she would manipulate things like this. Through my lawyer, my parents declared estrangement from Emma. It seemed like she was trying to use her child as a shield to rely on my parents, but my parents absolutely refused to accept that. I had thought it would be fine if Emma and Mark got married, but it seems that didn't happen. It appears that Mark, with his pride, couldn't forgive Emma for trying to shift all the blame onto him when she was caught by me. In the end, Emma couldn't raise the baby on her own and had to temporarily place the child in a facility. Mark's affair with his wife's sister had caused rumors to circulate within the company, making it uncomfortable for him to continue working there. As a result, he decided to resign. Despite Mark's attempts to reconcile, I naturally couldn't accept it. In fact, I obtained a restraining order through the police to ensure that I wouldn't have to see Mark again. With the restraining order in place, I knew that I wouldn't have to see Mark's face ever again. On the other hand, I became even more dedicated to my work. Initially, there were many concerns, but as I threw myself into my job, my colleagues saw my determination, and it boosted morale. It seems our sales have significantly increased. I'm done with marriage, but happiness isn't just about that. I'm committed to a fulfilling job. I have a trustworthy boss, reliable colleagues, and kind parents. Right now, I feel more than content. I hope these peaceful days continue.